I'm Tony, and I have progressive supranuclear palsy. Follow me on my journey.
Open and the borders of the track back are broken on the postcard saying the train wreck blue.
Hello everybody. I'm going to be discussing dementia. The title of this is Dementia 101, or I Can't Believe I Have Dementia. The format for these next few videos is going to be slightly different. I will be doing solo talking from my perspective on what dementia is for a PSP patient, and how you can distinguish it from other types of problems that may come up, which will lead you to medication, infection, or comorbidity for other diseases. For the next 3 or so videos, it will be me talking, and then on the last video in this series, my wife Barbara will be talking, and from a caregiver and observer perspective, things that she has to deal with. I will be going on my perceptions and how I perceive that that I affect other people. As you can see, there is no editing on this. I am trying in this series to give a full, unedited, uninterrupted talk about this. This is going to be contrary to my posts, which look pretty lucid. I'm not really that way. I do have notes here. Normally in my recording, I have a tablet PC underneath it, and I scroll and stop and edit the scrolling and stopping all the time. In this series, I will be going off of written notes and thoughts that I have. So, what led to this diagnosis of dementia, and what is dementia? Well, dementia itself can be pretty scary, just the word. But you really need to think of the word dementia like you do cancer, the word cancer. It doesn't tell you anything. I don't have cancer, by the way. It doesn't tell you anything about cancer. It doesn't tell you where it's at, what causes it, or how it may affect me. Dementia is the same way. That said, many people, a vast majority, associate the word dementia with Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's full name basically is Alzheimer's dementia. Clearly, 60% or more of the people with a dementia have Alzheimer's. But dementia is an umbrella term. So under that umbrella, you have the Alzheimer's. You've also have several others. You have dementia with Lewy bodies, or Lewy body dementia. You have frontotemporal dementia, which includes executive function dementia. You have a dementia caused by things going on with your blood, with your veins and arteries and stuff. And there's other dementias, and I'll only show a few under the graphic. The dementia that we generally get with progressive supranuclear palsy or cortical basal degeneration is an executive function dementia. As I said, it is a frontotemporal dementia. Now, the midbrain is located in the temporal area, right at the end of the brainstem. And that is called the midbrain, at the very top of it. And it is surrounded by an area that controls your executive function. When you're getting PSP, the neurofibrillary tangles can impact or affect that area of your brain that controls that executive function thoughts. Like most people, I was originally thought that I had a mild cognitive impairment. That was done quickly on a 1 or 2 page test, and my normal GP doc just asked questions. That was in 2017. In 2019, when I was being diagnosed for PSP, my urologist did a more comprehensive test, of which I failed a lot of portions miserably. So much so that I started crying. I've mentioned in several other videos and in my posts on the Facebook groups that I have emotional lability. That is one of those executive functions, is the control or emotional regulation. If you don't have that, it's emotional lability, so you can cry or laugh at inappropriate times. I'm about to sneeze. One moment. I'm not going to pause this. Choo. Thank you for anybody I said bless you. And I generally, when I do sneeze, it's only 2 times, and I'm done. And I don't know what causes it. I've been sneezing a lot the last few months. I'm not susceptible to pollen or anything like that, but that's beside the point. That's not what we're here for. So when I was going through those tests, I knew that I was failing things miserably. but I didn't know how bad. I figured it was just another step in that mild cognitive impairment thing. What the doc told me devastated me. He said, you have the associated dementia with PSP. He didn't explain that it was executive function dementia or anything else like that. My thoughts are like everybody else. I thought dementia, certainly I don't have dementia. I still have my intellect. My short-term and long-term memories are all still intact. How can I have dementia? But that's the thing about the various dementias and where they make the effect and why it is absolutely essential that you make the leap from Alzheimer's dementia to executive function dementia, which is associated with PSP. Now, not all patients will have the dementia. There are some that do quite well. And they don't have that. The symptoms affect everybody differently, as we know. So when I asked further questions, I was like, how can I have dementia? I had to do the research. And I found that executive function dementia. My next visit, the second visit with him, I asked about that. And he said that's what I was alluding to, not Alzheimer's. Because I had that discussion afterwards. The way my brain works, I can't always think of what I want to do or say on the spot. That's why I've got notes. I need a prompt, and these notes are my prompt. And these dark glasses help because they don't show that I'm trying to keep this below the camera and yet look down at it. Eventually it will peak up as I get further down. But some researchers consider PSP to be a frontotemporal dementia itself, with the addition of falling and the vision, because of the executive function dementia. I don't adhere to that myself, and most of the researchers that I have read about, I haven't spoken with any, but most that I have read about don't adhere to that either, because as I alluded to, not every patient will have the dementia or signs of the dementia. So the debate is still on that. But let's assume that it falls under the FTD just for the sake of this topic coverage. What exactly happens with executive function dementia? Well, like a corporation, your brain has a center that controls everything. It controls your muscle movement for your eyes, your walking, your speech, things like that. And that is voluntarily done. So you trying to move your eyes is what's difficult. You trying to move your feet is where the problem goes. That doesn't mean your feet can't move, because certainly you will experience like a twitch or something like this. That is an involuntary movement. Your breathing is an involuntary movement. So there are lots of involuntary movements, but what's really affected is in the midbrain and that's the Voluntary Movement Center. With the executive function, it's like a corporation with that head of the corporation being in charge. However, that head of the corporation begins to go awry. Instead of asking somebody from marketing to come up to talk about the new marketing plan, he might ask somebody from maintenance, and that's kind of like it works here. The executive function is messed up, so I can't direct things easily. I can't perceive things easily. Now, there's really two big abilities that are affected with executive function dementia. Those are organization abilities and regulation abilities. Now, what do I mean by that? Organization abilities will include things like my attention span, my planning. We like to go out and I can't plan on it anymore. I can't say, well, we need to leave at this time, get in the car, and that's hard for me. Sequencing. If it wasn't for this, I wouldn't be good with sequencing. Editing is a key example in my posts. I jot down things and try to put them in some sort of an order. I move them around and fill them out more. Problem solving. Like when the doc told me that I have dementia, my mind was going to the dementia realm, to Alzheimer's. I couldn't think to ask questions, whether there was anything that we can do, what kind it was, or what all. Right? I will, in organization, also have working memory problems. That's different in long term and short term, and I'll explain that in the next video. In working memory, though, suffice it to say, it is the immediate memory. I've got this paper in my hand and I'm holding it up. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't remember to look down at it, because it would have left my mind. It's only about 15 feet maybe from our refrigerator in the kitchen to my bedroom door, as I'm fairly close to the kitchen. And my wife posts a schedule when I need to take a shower, when I need to do my exercises and stuff. I will look at the calendar, and by the time I've went that 15 feet to the bedroom, I will have forgotten what's on the calendar. A few hours later, something may prompt me and remind me of what was on the calendar, but in the immediate, I don't know. And that is the thing about that working memory, is that I need prompts. The prompt can be an external source, like a noise or a conversation, a smell, a sight, or it can be internal, like my stomach growling, wanting me to go eat, or my bladder getting full. But as I said, I'll talk more about that later. With the organization, we also have the cognitive flexibility. So when you start on a topic in a conversation, I may not follow if there is a change in that topic. I have a hard time thinking abstractly, so I was a computer programmer, and I could think abstractly with that, what I had to do. Now it's a real problem. I have a hard time with sensory overload. That is going to be my mind selecting relevant sensory information is basically it. And I've written that, so that's how I know to say it. But the relevant sensory information will limit me to only one or two people in the area giving conversations. If there's a TV on, that's just too much with a couple of people. Group sizes now have to be small. The other ability that I talked about being affected is regulation. This is where you get things like the apathy and the impulsivity. I have a hard time initiating an action. Even setting up to record this video, I had to have lots of prompts and prompting. And it is the same with all my videos. That's part of the reason that they're coming out irregularly. The other part is that my wife and I are still, as we say at the end, making memories. So we spend time together doing those things. And that impacts on my initiation of action for this. I lack self-control. That is the impulsivity. I know that if I need to get to the remote control, I'll get up and get it. I may fall, but when I'm getting up to get it, I don't think about the falling. It's impulsive that I get up and get it. I've always gotten up to get it. I will continue to do that. My brain tells me to do that. But I don't have that filter, as it were, to say, don't do that because you're going to fall. And then I can fall. I've talked about in the regulation is the emotional lability, Lability, not liability. The emotional lability is basically the emotional regulation centers. I mentioned the selecting relevant sensory information. I can't monitor internal and external stimuli either. So I have problems with the external stimulation or even internal. Like if my, I've in the last almost 2 months, I've got some dystonia in my left leg. Part of it is a contraction of my muscles, but the contraction is causing a couple of my toes to twitch like my finger is now. And the twitching is the internal stimuli. I know it's there, and I can't stop it or whatever. I have trouble initiating or inhibiting context-specific behavior. What do I mean by that? Well, the context-specific behavior is going to be like with this emotional lability. It's hand-in-hand kind of thing. Is that it hasn't happened, but I may laugh at a funeral, or I may cry when other people are laughing. For instance, as I've written, my wife offered me a piece of bundt cake, and I took the piece of bundt cake in my hand, totally intending to eat it with my hands because I drop a lot of food anyway. And she asked one simple question, and I broke down crying. And that question was, do you want a fork? Do I want a fork? And that caused me to cry. She brought me a glass of water. I'm supposed to be drinking a cup of water before every meal, and according to my dietitian. So my wife brought me a cup of water. I grabbed the water and started crying. Why? It's nothing that should have happened in that context. I don't believe that I've experienced a problem, but other people may experience difficulties with moral reasoning. You heard about people acting inappropriately, like sexual advances and things like that. That's not under their control when they have this. So please explain to everybody outside that it is a brain disease. It's not him or her. It is a brain disease. And lastly, something I do have problems with is decision making. All this falls under regulation. With the decision making, as an example, if I am given a question like, what do you want for dinner? That will cause my brain to basically freeze up. Because my brain is trying to process it all, and it can't. Generally, that leads to an emotional outburst, because it's the only way that I can kick my brain out of that loop, as it were, of it going round and round. My wife has learned, give me no more than 3 choices, mostly 2. So she'll say, do you want fish or chicken for dinner? You know? And if I chose chicken, she'll say, do you want fried chicken, baked chicken? And we go from there. With baked chicken, do you want it with lemon or, so on and so forth. And that's how we get around that. At the bottom of this pages, I have a list of what damage the executive functions always list to. I'm just going to read these off. And you may notice these in your loved one or in yourself. And that is difficulty organizing, difficulty planning and getting an initiation or getting started with something. Inability to multitask. One thing at a time, please. My brain can only cope with one now. Difficulty with verbal fluency. That's obvious. I slur my speech, but I also forget words and mispronounce words. Sometimes when I'm reading, but so far I think we've been pretty fortunate. Only when I edit this video later to send it out will I notice that there's a problem or not. Difficulty processing, storing, and retrieving information. And that difficulty is experienced in a big slowdown. I find it a lot longer to do what I used to do. I used to be in meetings as a leader and say, speak up and all. So often, and my brain worked so fast that I was asked several times to give others a time to make an input. I never did. I never learned that lesson. But anyway, and now I can't get access to that information. The damage from the executive function can also lead to mood swings. You'll hear some people describe, my husband or my wife is now stubborn or more stubborn than they used to be, and other adjectives along the lines of the stubbornness or the mood swings. That is the disease. They have no control over it. My wife and I were talking on Father's Day. My daughter-in-law and son were here in the house, and we were all talking. My wife did one of my pet peeves and it interrupted me. And I have this little device, and I press this button.
Give me time to communicate.
And because she wasn't letting me get my thoughts out or anything else, and that it impacts my thinking greatly. I picked this thing up because I had it. I pressed that button, and then I threw it. My daughter and son-in-law they experienced that firsthand. My wife experiences it a lot. And of course, I can't bend over to pick it up, so now my wife's got to go do that and everything else. But even I have the mood swings. Hopefully not too many while we're on camera. We may try to keep some in if we record them. People have to see this. It's going to be embarrassing to me. And maybe embarrassing to my wife. But I think that if we do catch it on video, that we have to keep it and show people. Some people experience a lack of concern for other people or animals. Other people, like myself, experience an over-concern. So just the opposite. I experience an over-concern. It's really hard for me emotional-wise now to read about new warriors or warriors passing. And by warriors, for those of you new, that is a PSP or CBD patient. Because we're fighting the fight against this disease. But I read that, whether it's from the caregiver's side or the warrior themselves. And I read that, and it is devastating to my mind. By the same token, I live in Central Florida. It's hot outside, and I see a poor dog going by in a golf cart headed to the pet run with their owner. But the poor thing is panting in a car, and I feel for that animal, And that poor thing, I know it's hot and everything, and all it's gonna do is just go to the bathroom, run around a little bit, but I still feel for it. And that includes the insects around here. My wife wants me to swat every bee and wasp that we have, because she doesn't like getting near them. And I'm more about letting them go about their business and just getting them out of my way. I have that over concern. The person may also experience loss of interest in activities. They may display socially inappropriate behavior. By the way, that loss of interest in activities is basically more apathy than anything else. That's what it equates to. The loss of interest could be, you used to play cards with them all the time, a certain card game, and they love that card game, but now they won't play it. They don't want to play it. They used to be in a conversation, and now, though they can speak, they prefer to remain silent. That's all part of it. But the socially inappropriate behavior, what's listed is the inability to learn from the consequences from past actions. How many times has somebody fallen, or you have fallen, and you get up, and you may get admonished, hey, you should be having me help you, or you may be saying, hey, I should be helping you walk. You just call on me, and so on and so forth. And yet, 10 minutes later, the person has fallen again, or nearly fallen, or whatever. And that is that inability to learn. We have those memories. We don't have time to access it. It takes time to get to it. So it's not really a learning thing. It's an immediate use of the learned behavior. We don't have that. We have difficulty sometimes making a leap from the symbolic to the real world. I have said in several of my posts, when the person's talking about dementia and stuff, is get into their world or my world. Don't stick to yours, because I won't recognize it. I can't. When you start talking about, that new red Chrysler that I have, I just said those words. I can slowly picture red. The Chrysler, I know it's a car. Well, what does it look like? I don't know. But I just know that it's a car. So anyway, the last and biggest one that may be affected is something that I read about all the time. Is unaware is that the patient is unaware, or they deny that their behavior is a problem. I even do that. Things disappear out of my mind so quickly. As I said, I threw that across the room, that tiny talker too. I threw it across the room. I didn't know that I had thrown it until my wife was handing it back. It was already out of my mind. Then about 10 minutes later, I was able to recall some of that, and then apologize to my son and daughter-in-law who were here, and the witnesses of that. I think that's the first time that they've ever seen that part of the behavior. But they are unaware or can deny that they are having a problem. In the immediate, you may hear that. Oh, I don't have any problem. I'm going to get up and go make a sandwich, but they really don't recognize it. And no amount of your talking to them about it is going to change that. It takes time. And that is another thing that I promote, time. So this has been quite lengthy, and I think that we're about ready to close this out. And I think I was pretty successful in getting it through in one go. I don't think I'll have to do any edits on it, even with the sneeze and a couple of pauses. And yes, I remembered the sneeze because I was just prompting myself about all that. So our next discussion is going to go to the in-depth on that first of those two problems, and it's going to be titled "Oops, I Can't Get Organized." So until next time, I hope everybody has a safe journey in their progression or with their patient, and remember to keep making memories.
Well, the first half rolled in the second rolled, it's the third of a turn, and it won't stop rolling. I'm on the forecast singing the train wreck blues. Well, the snow kept falling and we all did fear, and you heard the blame the engineer, but there's blood on the train tracks singing the train wreck blues. Well, I told my baby I've been coming home. Took the first train across the Rocky Mountain Range, but some things you just can't know, my lord, and it looks like my plans have changed. Cause the engine's on fire and the box doors open and the portals on the tracks of the back are broken. All on the forecast saying the train wreck blues.